Hello and welcome back to 1874. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, joined by scout and analyst Ben Mattinson to look at rumoured Villa goalkeeper target Joan Garcia. We're going to talk about him, a little bit about the goalkeeping situation with Villa in general, and just try and learn everything we can from Ben about this young up-and-coming goalkeeper. This show is sponsored by Luke Roper, and if you want to get 20% off everything Luke have to offer, then use the code TVV20 and you'll get your 20% off. Now, Ben, I was looking for someone to talk about Joan Garcia, and your name was recommended to me as a big, massive, huge fan of the young Spanish goalkeeper. So excellent to have you on. Obviously, with you being a scout and an analyst as well, it's going to be a really interesting topic to talk through with you. First off, though, you are an Arsenal fan. So that was initially how your interest in this goalkeeper peaked. You had a good look at him because Arsenal were heavily linked with him last summer, the summer just gone. First off, though, obviously you've got experience of Emi Martinez. As a neutral in this, not a Villa fan, how surprised are you that it looks like Emi's going to be off in the summer?
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame because I think he's been so good for you guys, and he's found, obviously that being an Arsenal fan, I'd seen and known of him for such a long time. But that year that he had when obviously went and won the FA Cup, he was such an important part of that. And I felt like, you know what, he needs to go somewhere where he's going to be appreciated and he's going to be the number one. It made sense for him to go, and he actually was a big part of Villa turning around completely as a club. And is kind of getting those guys in early, and then him also becoming such an important player for Argentina as well. If it wasn't for, this is that whole story about, if it wasn't for Neil Maupay's injuring Leno, then Messi wouldn't have won the World Cup. Like,
Yeah, I've seen it.
all of this stuff. But no, I'm surprised though. But at the same time, if the rumors are about Atletico Madrid, then that makes so much sense in terms of they're just getting every single Argentine player. So yeah.
When Emi came to Villa, it didn't feel like there was someone who'd been a star to replace. Villa had struggled with the goalkeeping department for a few years in the Championship and their first season back in the Premier League. Obviously, nearly got relegated, just about stayed up, and the rest is history. And Villa are where they are now. But one of the big reasons they are where they are now, like you said, is because of Emi Martinez. So actually, the next guy, if Emi does go, and at the time of recording, I believe that he will go, the next guy coming in, it's not as easy to come in and be a number one for Aston Villa as it was when Emi came in, if that makes sense. And obviously, the goalkeeper that Villa have been linked with the most is Joan Garcia from Espanyol. I mentioned it when I introed you at the start, but you've taken a real interest in this goalkeeper. Aside from the Arsenal links, what is it that's made you think this goalkeeper is so good?
In general, when I'm looking at goalkeepers, there's obviously there's loads of different aspects of it. You think of someone, what they're like on the ball, what their shots stopping like, but also one of the things I really liked about him, which is a similarity with David Raya, is how confident he is at claiming crosses. And that's actually where I first saw his name. Before we were kind of linked with him a little bit. But I'd seen his, in terms of claiming crosses, it was one of the highest percentages.
Okay.
And obviously Raya, that's one of his biggest strengths. And for someone who's not a very big keeper, who's only 6 foot, Raya, I mean, he's very good at coming to collect the ball. And the difference with Garcia is he's actually about 6'3", 6'4", and there's a lot. For me, his shot stopping potential is just way higher as well. But so there's a lot of similarities with his mentality and how composed he is on the ball, but just the general presence he has.
Okay.
I would say, to me, he's kind of he's got traits that are more like Raya, but at the same time, as a shot stopper, he's a lot more like a Alisson type goalkeeper, and the type of keeper that could be a real leader for a team and to keep you in a game when your back's against a wall. You think of in the Champions League recently, Donnarumma, Courtois, Alisson against PSG as well. Though these keepers that can, if they're literally facing 10 shots in a game, they can save all of them, and then you can just go nick a goal at the end. He's got that type of ability, and I'd seen a lot of him in the division below, and there was loads of potential there. But one of the things about it was he'd only just come into the team for about 6 months. So that alone, you're thinking, well, he's not got a lot of experience. So it just depends on how he makes a step up, and he's done so well since they've got promoted.
Yeah, you talk about like goalkeepers being capable of making 9, 10 saves. So many games in the league this season where he's actually had to do that. He's been a very, very busy boy at Espanyol, as you'd expect. Espanyol towards the lower echelons of La Liga. I watched a YouTube compilation of him the other day, his saves this season, and the thing that struck me was you could tell that like when their saves are put together, so many of them are from the same game. Then it follows on, and it goes to the next game. There's loads of saves from that game as well. So it's fair to say he's had a lot of practice at shot stopping this season.
Yeah, no, definitely. One of the things about their Espanyol as a team, they're actually very underwhelming as a team because ended up watching a lot and just been more ended up you're more fixated on the team they're playing against than them because they're just a little bit disappointing. But they've got a right back who's quite good defensively. But apart from that, defensively, they face a lot of shots. They don't cut off, like, stop others from getting shots off.
Yeah.
So he has a lot to do, but he's really like a massive part. If they stay up, we don't know if they're staying up. There's still a chance that they could go down. But if they do, I mean, you should get a statue or something, honestly. But I don't like to do this in general if you're scouting a player or whatever. A lot of people do it when you just go on SofaScore and look at their ratings. But that alone, you'd be like, who is this monster? Because you look through and he's got man of the match after man of the match. And for a goalkeeper to get that, it says a lot. Even when you're losing a game and he's getting man of the match, it really shows how important he is for that team.
Am I right in thinking they beat Real Madrid 1-0? Is that right? I've read it. It might have been Barca. I can't remember which way around it was. But they beat one of the big boys 1-0, and he had to make an abundance of saves in that game. I mean, I'm assuming if he was to come to the Premier League and come to Villa, he'd be less busy. Although Villa have actually had times this season where they've shipped a lot of goals and let a lot of shots through. But thankfully, that was earlier on in the season, and they seem to have sorted that out now. I think the thing that would worry me if he was to come in and replace Emi Martinez is one. Probably experience of the league. Emi, when he came to Villa, he hadn't played loads of football, but that's 6 months at Arsenal, playing at the top level, playing in big games. He kind of gained that experience and gained some confidence from that. And I'm sure Garcia is very, very confident given his body of work this season. But we saw years and years ago, and I'm going back a bit here, when David De Gea came to the Premier League after being so good for Atleti, he found it difficult to step up to the physical side of thing, and we know the Premier League's getting more and more physical every single season now. So I think that would concern me a little bit. But then you've kind of alleviated that concern because you've talked about how good he is and how dominant he is in terms of coming and getting the ball. And I actually think that's Martinez's best trait for Villa as well. When he comes to get the ball, I never ever worry because he always gets there.
Yeah, there's kind of a thing with certain keepers, and he's got this where they're really commanding of their box. Like, you've got to remember, at the end of the day, if they're like defending their goal, it's like it's theirs. Like, yeah. And they some goalkeepers act like it is like you're invading their space, and he'll come and collect the ball like it's his right to collect it, and quite confidently. For someone who's not very experienced, which is what kind of stands out, obviously when you look at his age, you'll think, well, surely he is, because I think he's about 24.
Yeah, he's 24.
But so he'd been, in terms of like in Spain, he'd been the backup and he'd been quite highly rated. And I spoke to some Espanyol fans, and they said like some of the people that had like either known him from when he was younger, or people who are just fans of the club, I've heard about him for a while, and they've said like he's genuinely could be like Spain's number one. They've always thought he was going to be really good, but he just didn't quite get his opportunity. And they had another experienced goalkeeper. Then he got injured, and thought that's an opportunity for him to come in. He's just not moved since then. That's his number one spot now. And sometimes one of the things I think about sometimes with goalkeepers, and Emi Martinez is like the perfect example of this. The reason sometimes they are the way they are is because of how things have happened. You look at someone like Martinez, where he's waited so long for his opportunity and he's kept working. That resilience means that when they get that opportunity, they're not going to allow someone else to take it. And I think he showed that. And someone who has to keep fighting. You get this a lot with players in Argentina. People say, why are they all so aggressive and so like Martinez is, you know what he's like, his personality.
We know well.
Yeah, exactly. So with someone like that, it's because you have to fight all the time. You have to fight, and so everything is a battle. And when you get to that point where someone like Garcia, who's been the backup and now he's got his opportunity, he's not going to go somewhere where he's not going to be number one, because he knows that he deserves to be that now. So that's a real positive about him. And I think you look at him and think he is someone that will have aspirations to be Spain's number one. And there's a lot of Spanish goalkeepers out there, so he's got to go somewhere where he's going to be the number one, and he's going to be competing at a high level, playing Champions League football or playing in one of the top teams. So it doesn't surprise me at all, because I think what Villa have got, what you guys have got right now, is there's a lot of foundations to kind of, before when you'd got in the Champions League, there's that thing where could fall down again because you don't have the depth to maintain it. Whereas now I'm looking like there's some serious depth, especially in midfield. Some of the options in midfield is like one of the best depths in the league. You add a goalkeeper who could be a goalkeeper for 10 years, and then that's another component of being a top team in Europe. So, yeah, that'd be huge.
Do you think he's ready to be number one in the Premier League straight away? Because I think in an ideal situation here for Villa, if PSR wasn't a thing, you do what Liverpool are doing. So they've had Alisson and Kelleher, and I think Kelleher will go in the summer, and it's Marmadashvili's going to come in from Valencia, and he's probably going to spend a year being the cup goalkeeper and learning off Alisson before there's a changing of the guard. I think in an ideal world, Villa would have Martinez, bring in Garcia. Imagine Villa don't qualify for the Champions League and they're in the Europa League. Garcia plays all the cup games, and you learn off Emery for a year, and then that kind of changing of the position feels a little bit easier. With his character, do you genuinely believe he's ready to become a number one in the Premier League at a high-level club straight away?
I personally think he could, definitely, because I think of when you're like at a team where he's had to be a leader and you go amongst other leaders.
Yeah.
I think of like some of the best teams that would win titles in the past and current as well. You look across the team and they're full of captains. That's the way I look at it. Like any of them now, like let's take the Arsenal Invincibles, right? If you take any of them, put them in the current team, they could be captain. And that's kind of how I'd like, if you're building a team that are going to compete for titles, that's what they should go for. And he's someone that he could be a captain for anyone. Not that he will be for Villa or whoever, but adding that type of personality is really important. A lot of people have spoken about his leadership and his mentality being really impressive, and for someone even when he was a lot younger as well. So that's a huge positive. It kind of translates in his game as well, like the composure. Like sometimes on the ball, he just stays calm on the ball. He's got really, I mean, I can go more into his passing, but his quality as well.
Please do.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see it as much at Espanyol because it's not how they play, but sometimes there's moments in his build-up play where he's like he's more intelligent than the team that he's in, and you can see like he's in the wrong place. He needs to be somewhere else where they're going to play with the ball, but he's got so much variance to his passing. Like he could play like on either foot, clipped passes over to the fullbacks or high up to the wingers. He can real nice driven along the ground, quite low passes, high up into the middle third. And his long distribution is good as well. Like the range of passing is really important if you want to keep the ball. But also if you think of someone coming to claim crosses, one of the benefits of it is you can quickly then release it and start a transition, which I think with how you guys play and the pace you've got in attack, that's quite a frightening combination. If you think you could be up against it all game, I don't know, let's say playing Man City or something, and he comes and claims a cross and then plays the long ball quickly to Rodgers and Watkins, like that's a goal. Do you know what I mean? Like they'll finish it off. On the ball, having a good touch, being able to control the ball well and on either foot as well, means you're not going to be in a scenario where you pass it back to him and you're a bit worried. You're confident that he'll be able to pass it.
I mean, Emmy hasn't actually had to do it as much this season, but definitely with Villa's high line last season, they've moved away from that a little bit this season. But I still think Emmy's so adept at sweeping up. It's such a crucial part of what he does and how Emery plays. I guess at Espanyol, he probably doesn't get the chance to do it as much because I imagine their line isn't particularly high because they're a struggling team. But when you've watched him, is that something that he's adept at as well, kind of sweeping up and dealing with that?
So one of the quite good things of me watching them last season and this season is obviously they were one of the best teams in the league last year.
Yeah.
So they actually were quite high in comparison to last year, and played differently altogether. And his I remember looking at it and seeing stats wise that one of the stats that helps you tell if a goalkeeper sweeps or whatever is their actions outside the penalty area.
Okay.
And it was quite high, which obviously shows he comes out and collects the ball. But we've seen that a lot. He's one of the comparisons. One of the reasons I compared him with Raya is because of how alert he is. For me, that's one of the things I like about Ray. Is very, very athletic, very alert. Kind of senses the danger before it happens, and he's very quick to be able to recover, whether that's literally sprinting or how athletic is it, kind of like reflexes in the box. Like if the ball's going this way and then it moves last minute, it's quickly swap over to the side. He's got that as well, but in terms of coming to claim the balls over the top of the defense and sweeping, like he's quick at that as well. Obviously, he's not perfect. I'm saying all the good stuff right now, yeah. But we are talking like an Alisson type goalkeeper. Like when you looked at Alisson when he was at Roma, that type of goalkeeper.
You mentioned a lot of his qualities. I'm sure when you scout a player, you're never going to scout a player and there not be anything that you think, oh, that player can work on that. You just kind of touched on it slightly. But if you were to have any concerns with this goalkeeper, what would your main one be if you had to pick one out?
There has been a few. One of the things I've seen sometimes is the direction of how he parries the ball.
Okay.
So generally with him as a goalkeeper, he's someone that kind of prevents danger. So one of the things about claiming a cross, which is so positive, is if you come to collect the cross header, which means you don't have to make a save. So it's like stopping you having to make a save.
And he's made a lot of saves as well.
Exactly, yeah. So you're like, well, if you take away that, then you probably would have to do even more. So sometimes when you see a goalkeeper who's made a load of saves, but they don't claim crosses, you think, well, you're making headlines, but could you just avoid the danger altogether, you know? And also catching shots from distance, he does really well. So again, it stops there being anything to parry. But when he does, sometimes the direction of it can go straight to someone near him. It's an experience thing. You know, he's thinking more about saving it than thinking about where he's saving it to. And that comes with experience. It will be refined over time. Sometimes in one-on-ones as well, I've noticed like his arms positioning, they're a bit behind him. If you think of someone's arms being behind, they're not going to be as wide and spread as much. And I think this is one thing Martinez is really good at. I mean, obviously his famous save in the World Cup final, but there's that thing with like when they're coming out, he's got the speed to come out quickly, but also making yourself as big as possible, as quick as possible. That's somewhere I've noticed at times his arms being too low or behind his body. In terms of his passing, it's just the decision making. Like the quality is there, but you know when you look at someone and think, I don't know, they've got all the tools to build something, but they use the wrong ones. It's just like that, where he's got the passing range, is all in his locker, but sometimes the decision making of the right pass to make in each scenario could be better. So again, I think that's just about repetitions and being in a team that allows for that.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, Espanyol, it's not really how they play. So we don't see as much of it. But like I said, the experience, if he has more experience, all of this will be improved. You know, they're not like massive worries or anything.
No, you know, every goalkeeper needs refinement, and a change of environment sometimes brings that refinement. And Villa have got a Spanish goalkeeping coach who's obviously worked with Emmy before at Arsenal, and he's worked with him now at Villa. I guess that's a beneficiary of coming to Villa as well. If he stays in the league, he's probably going to have a Spanish goalkeeping coach. But if he comes to Villa and wants to play in the Premier League, Villa have got that Spanish goalkeeping coach already there, which would, again, you would presume would help with the transition.
Yeah, definitely, and obviously Emery as well, and
yeah,
there being a few players as well around the club, and I think it's one of those things that most people don't think about, but I do sometimes. Like, one of the things I've said, Brighton, people always praise Brighton's recruitment, but one thing I like is like they're really good at transitioning players in, and they've kind of created a bit of a club of a bit of a culture of like Spanish speaking players. So you think if someone comes from Ecuador, the biggest thing for them is like adapting to the culture, and they're going from living in whatever country to a completely new one. I know England's not as far away from Spain, but it's a big thing. So having someone who can clearly communicate would be huge for him to adapt, so he's not like too far away from home and everything. But yeah, I definitely think when you look at someone like him, he's got aspirations to be one of the best. So I think one thing that Villa could quite uniquely say is we made a goalkeeper one of the best in the world.
Yeah.
So, you can say we've got a track record of it. You can come in, this is your spot. We'll keep building with you as the number one. And it's quite an ideal scenario. He's not going to come in and be Martinez. He's going to be Garcia, and he's going to improve and be a better version of Garcia. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely top quality keeper with a lot of potential.
Where do you touch on it earlier? Where does he sit in kind of the pecking order of the Spanish national team? Do you think where would you? I mean, to be honest, I'm quite obviously Villa are going to be linked with a few goalkeepers, I think, but this has been the main link since it's become apparent that actually it was even before we looked like Martinez would leave. Villa were heavily linked with Garcia. The Spanish have done a really good job of producing goalkeepers over the last 5 to 10 years and producing goalkeepers of real substance that can do a bit of everything that you'd want a goalkeeper to do. Where is he in terms of the Spanish pecking order? Because he's not been capped by Spain yet. He's not even been in a squad, has he? Where would you rank him in terms of Spanish goalkeepers right now?
The one thing I find that as a position, goalkeepers, it's kind of like off a body of work where your ratings are. Like, if you look at, say, Martinez that year where it helped Arsenal win the FA Cup, performance-wise, didn't do anything wrong. But then, would you say he's one of the best in the world? No, because he's not done it for several years. Then when he does it for a few years, now everyone's saying he's one of the best in the world because he's done it in key moments. So it's like he's not got the years of experience that other keepers have got, but on ability, like, he's right up there with all of them. It just depends about, I think after this year, you'd think how good he's been for Espanyol, we should get a cap. You should get a call up at some point, especially because there's all these random international games all the time. But I think right now you're probably looking at Raya, Unai Simon, probably. Those are the main two off the top of my head I think would be fighting for the number one. But I think it's his, I'll be honest, I think he's just a superior goalkeeper to the other ones that they've got.
Okay.
So it's just more about when, not if. Getting the next move and then doing well on his next move, that's where he'll really start to take over in the national team.
And just finally, before I let you go, and it's honestly been so good to talk to you, like so much knowledge of him, which is exactly what I wanted for this show today. If he doesn't go to Villa, or say Martinez was to stay in Villa aren't in for a goalkeeper, or let's say they are, who do you think will be Villa's competition to get him in? What other clubs do you think would be sniffing around him? Because you've said he wants to be a number one as well, which I'm presuming limits the pool a little bit.
I feel like there's a lot of teams that kind of need a goalkeeper. Strangely, a lot, even quite big teams. I'm looking at Man City; they might be getting rid of both of their keepers. Chelsea, like, their goalkeeper's been a massive problem. There's talk about Newcastle, like, wanting to move on from Pope and wanting a keeper who's better with the ball. Maybe if hypothetically, if someone like Newcastle got him, maybe they would do kind of what Liverpool did with Mamardashvili. They'd loan him out for a year, I don't know, or something like that. And I think when you're looking in Spain, like, rivalries aside, Barcelona, because it's a release clause. If they pay the release clause, they can get the player. And I think he might be a Barcelona fan. I don't know, which, has a little bit of an impact. But yeah, I think generally when you look at these teams, they all need a goalkeeper. Obviously, when a lot of people say, like, oh, why would Arsenal be looking at someone when they've already got Raya? They are still I think since we've got a new sporting director, he's kind of saying we've already got a goalkeeper. Why are we spending money on another goalkeeper? Whereas the club think that he's a better goalkeeper than Raya. So they're
Okay.
like in terms of potential, they think he's someone that could take over and be the number one. So I think they previously saw him as an opportunity because they were like undervalued in the league below, had a really good year, not that experienced. Probably the value would be quite low compared to how good he would be. Whereas now, like they're not going to get him now. There's so many other teams. One of the things with him in general, though, and you think why it's a massive opportunity and why there's so many teams interested is because not just being one of the best young goalkeepers, but the fact that he has a release clause that's about, I think it's around 20 million euros.
Yeah, so it's a good price.
Yeah, and it goes down if they get relegated to like less than 15, I think. So it could be like an absolute bargain. And let's say you sold Martinez for, I don't know what, 40 something, a random number like that.
I was hoping for more than that, to be honest.
Yeah, I know, random number. But yeah, it probably would be quite a lot, to be fair. Especially if Oblak, if he goes to Saudi, they might get quite a lot for him.
Yeah,
So
you'd think.
yeah, but let's see.
Okay, then. So in conclusion, what I've garnered from what you've said to me is he's a cross between David Raya, Emi Martinez, and Allison. So it sounds pretty tasty to me.
Yeah, not bad.
If you did have to choose one goalkeeper to compare him to, who would it be?
Yeah, I would say Allison out of all of
Okay.
them.
Okay.
I use a comparison with Raya for like specific things, like his cross
Distribution.
claiming and stuff. But I definitely think he's more of an Allison in terms of his personality and presence as well. But yeah, and there's other goalkeepers out there. And if you guys sell Martinez if he wants to go and you sell him for a good amount, it's not that he's the only keeper that can do the job. There's some other good ones there, but it's more about the price with this. And if you've, PSR issues, maybe.
Yeah.
Like you got to try and find bargains where possible.
Without going into too much detail, what other you mentioned other goalkeepers? If you were scouting for Villa now and you're having to make a list of goalkeepers, who would your three be?
Three. What? So apart from Garcia, like three
I'll
other
let
ones.
you have I'll let you have Garcia if he would be in your top three keeping me.
Yeah, he would. Yeah, again for the price because I don't know, but I'm assuming there's PSL stuff going on, so I'd be trying to get a good value as well. One I've spoken about a lot before is plays for Nice in the French league, Marcin Bulka.
Okay.
What's quite interesting with him is that he was at Chelsea, one of those random players that
Oh,
Chelsea
okay.
just had and kept at the club and then just never used. So I believe he would actually be classed as homegrown, even though
Oh, interesting.
he's Polish and he's playing wherever. But yeah, it's because of the rule is like to do with you have to be in at an English club for at least 3 years before you turn 21, and he was just
Yeah.
randomly rotting in Chelsea's academy, like so many players. But he's massive. He's like 6'6", ball playing goalkeeper, big presence. I wasn't sure about whether he would be sold because Ineos owned them, and
Yeah.
obviously they own Man United. So would they want to sell him to an English team? These lot are so broke that they probably might do it.
Yeah.
So
No
he'd be
choice.
one. Another one at Roma. Again, Roma getting great goalkeepers. Miles
Oh, I
Svilar.
know. I've had him in Football Manager. Good goalkeeper in
Yeah,
Football Manager.
yeah. And you know what's quite funny with him because he was really highly rated when he was young, and everyone knew about him. And then he had this moment. I think it was against Man United when he caught the ball and then kind of went. He was really young. He was like 18 or something, and he went into his own net. And
Okay.
then everyone went on about, he made this massive mistake. And last year, when De Rossi came in at Roma, one of the first things he did, he took out Rui Patricio and brought in Svilar, and he's not moved from the team since. Quite similar to Garcia, and he's just like, again, very similar. He's won them games because of his performances, and he doesn't get as much spoken about as someone like Garcia. And I think he's got more years. Think of like a Martinez. He's gone from having a very low reputation, well, high to low, then have to build it up again and have to
Yeah.
keep being resilient and working and pushing through it. these type of things like shape the player and their mentality so much that you end up being even better for it. So yeah, he's one I really like as well. And again, he's got the passing as well. These are, when I'm speaking about these, all three of them, they've got the shot stopping and the distribution. And even, I think all three of them, I'm just trying to think. Yeah, I think all of them have got good penalty records as well. So it's another bonus.
Okay. I mean, yeah, we like that Martinez is good at penalties as well. That's certainly been helpful for
Yeah.
Villa and Argentina over the years. Ben, honestly, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. We'll make sure all your details are in the description on this video and on the audio version as well. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's been great to talk.
Yeah, goalkeeping expert here. I've really enjoyed that. Don't forget to stick with the channel. There'll be plenty more content upcoming, and do check our preview out ahead of the Manchester United game that was released on Friday as well. Please, plenty of content coming up through the week, as I say. So keep your eye on our socials for when the latest stuff is coming out. If you're watching via YouTube, then if you could subscribe with your post notifications on, leave us a like and leave us a comment, that would be absolutely fantastic. If you're listening via audio, Apple Podcast, 5-star review, and say something nice about us in the review section, and on Spotify, simply 5 stars and leave a comment on this episode. What goalkeeper would you like to see at Villa next if Emi Martinez does leave? When you're watching this video, we could have already played Manchester United. We might be in the Champions League. We might not. So yeah, it's a nervy time for Villa fans at the moment, but hopefully we've given you something to go on there with the goalkeeping department. Take care of yourselves, and as always, up the Villa.